So if you haven't seen the thumbnail, which I'm not sure how you wouldn't have, you know that there's going to be nothing but spoilers in this review of Deadpool and Wolverine. So let's get into it. Deadpool and Wolverine was really fun. I had a lot of fun in the theater watching this movie, but that isn't, excuse it from a lot of the issues that I did have with it. It was kind of a half and half experience for me. I would say a full experience for me in the theater. And then when I left the theater, the more and more I got away from it, the more I was like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't really fit what I'm saying. But I do have to say, I did have fun with this movie. I enjoyed myself, had a great time in the theater. I did have fun with this movie. So here's the things that I really enjoyed about this film. I thought it did a lot of really smart things. First of all, let's talk about the smart casting, which I guess is it's smart to be consistent. So you have Wade Wilson or Ryan Reynolds, and you have Logan or Hugh Jackman. The cast in this movie, perfect pairing, perfect chemistry. Wade continuously, I keep calling Ryan Reynolds Wade, but Ryan Reynolds continuously being the merc with the mouth, the full embodiment of the merc with the mouth. And one of the things I really appreciate from Ryan Reynolds in this role is how committed he is to the comic bookiness of it, right? One of the things that we see in a lot of superhero movies is characters continuously like taking off the mask to show the beautiful faces of the actors, right? Ryan Reynolds understands that this character of Deadpool, he keeps his mask on, and when he does take his mask off, it's for something important. And then you have Hugh Jackman. The reason why I loved him in this film is because he's the same Hugh Jackman, or I'm sorry, Wolverine, that he's always been, except for the really dope addition of the actual classic yellow Wolverine suit. I mean, there's some differences in there, but it's the suit that we've been looking for. I also love the reason why he had that suit, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but overall the cast was incredible, and that also extends to the actress who played Cassandra Nova. Even though she was one of my biggest issues with the film, the performance was great. The actress's name is Emma Corrin, and I think that she smashed this role. When she was putting the fingers through the face, I was like, oh my god. But not only was that scary, but the speech and what she was saying as she was doing it was super intimidating, which is one of the issues with the film. And I'll get to that later. But there was so much fun to be had in this film. Deadpool is his wisecracking self. Oh my god, the opening sequence with him desecrating the grave of Logan from the actual X-Men movies, who met his end, which I thought was a really smart thing to do. And there's a ton of smart things that this movie does. Number one, desecrating the grave of the old Logan, as well as acknowledging through that desecration that we're not touching that Logan movie necessarily. We're not bringing that Logan back to life. The story that you enjoyed in that Logan movie and the X-Men movies before, the great ending that he had, was kept. It wasn't tainted at all because we're not even dealing with that Logan anymore. So all the trepidation and the worry about ruining the legacy of that great movie, which I think is the top 3 movie in the Fox X-Men franchise. Also, I mean, depending on who you talk to, it could be a top 3 or 5 or top 1 to some people, movie and comic book movies in general. I think that we successfully left that alone by doing it in the most Deadpool way possible. He didn't impact that story, but he did play with the bones. He did fight with the bones, I should say, and really killed those TVA guys to the greatest intro in the Deadpool franchise, the Bye 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 song. That was phenomenal. Wade Wilson, Ryan Reynolds, he did a great job crafting that opening because it gets us back in the mood of Deadpool. We haven't seen this character in quite some time. I think like since 2018. I want the Funko Pop with the Wolverine claws that Deadpool is wearing from the bones. I want that, or the hot toy, which I don't really have the money to be affording hot toys right now, so give me the $14.99 Funko Pop, please. They were also smart in some of the great jokes that Deadpool was telling throughout the film, including getting on the MCU for being lackluster. When Wolverine comes into the film and he's like, hey man, you joined the MCU on the downturn. I believe that that's a direct acknowledgement from the MCU saying, hey, we know that this multiverse saga has not worked out in the way that we would have liked. And Deadpool makes a joke later on in the movie saying, hey guys, the multiverse thing isn't working, which is smart for two reasons. One, as I just said, they're acknowledging the fans and how they may feel. I feel like a lot of fans, not all, but a lot of fans do feel that way. But secondly, he's doing that joke inside of a multiverse movie, meaning, hey, we know that hasn't been great. We're still going to try to salvage it, try to breathe life into it. And goddamn, did they do that last night by announcing Tony Stark as, or Robert Downey Jr. rather, as Doctor Doom, Victor Von Doom, if you will, in Secret Wars and Avengers Doomsday. I'm one of those people who feels like Marvel is on the trajectory back. Not that everything was bad, but now we're kind of like getting excited again. I'm excited for Captain America Brave New World. I'm excited for Fantastic Four. I'm excited for Thunderbolts leading into those movies. I think there will be a movie in between that. Who knows? But I love the fact that Marvel, through Deadpool, which is the right character to do it because he's an outside character. He hasn't even really touched the 616 universe yet, other than his initial meeting with Happy, which was funny. Another thing that they did in a very intelligent way was also bring in those cameos of Blade, Gambit, and Elektra, Chris Evans as Human Torch. That was amazing. Oh my God, that scene, they got such a great pop in the theater. All three of them got a great pop. Gambit a little bit less, only because I don't think a lot of the general public are aware of how much Channing Tatum wanted to play Gambit and that was the story. I think us, me and you, the comic book nerd, very much knew that. So it was a little bit of a quieter pop, but it was actually still fun to see Channing Tatum. But let me also not forget X-23, who was also I guess you can call it a cameo in this movie. They were smartly used because they weren't just here for one scene and gone. They were actually integral parts of this movie going forward. It's very intelligent in the same way as keeping Andrew Garfield as well as Tobey Maguire in the No Way Home movie, not just as one scene cameos, but integral characters throughout the rest of the film. They gave them lines, they gave them purpose for being there, wanting to have a good ending, which I thought was one of the most intelligent things that this movie did, because what the MCU has done is acknowledged everyone's fandom of those movies that weren't necessarily a part of the main MCU, but they're saying that these are real. These things happen. These stories took place. So we're not erasing what you guys loved before as fans. We're embracing it. It's the opposite of what Star Wars did when they told the fans of Legends material that those stories no longer exist. They are not part of the canon. You guys can go cry in a corner somewhere. Another thing I enjoyed in the film were the fights. The first fight between Deadpool and Wolverine I thought was phenomenal. I thought that the car fight in the van as they're tearing each other to shreds was awesome. The build up to it, the conversation, the tearing down of Deadpool by Wolverine. He really laid into it and finally got his ass to shut up. Everybody throughout the movie was trying to get him to shut up. He's a merc with the mouth after all. But that leading up to Deadpool saying, I'm going to fight you now. And then them proceeding to fight morning, noon, and night, you really got to see how visceral those fights are between two people who kind of can't die. Their healing factors are going to keep them going. Those dudes are killing machines. I did think that the final fight between Team Deadpool and Wolverine versus Cassandra Nova and her band of raggedy mutants and other people from different universes, I thought that fight was kind of lackluster. Then we get to like the final fight, the fight between Deadpool, Wolverine, and all of the Deadpools. I thought it could have been a lot better than what we actually got. It kind of really felt paint by numbers. It wasn't the greatest ending to the movie, and I didn't love that part of it. Now I guess we can finally get to some of the negatives I have about this movie, which are quite a bit. My number one negative with this movie is the story. The story is paper thin. It's actually kind of dumb. Like the writing is awful for the story that they gave us. Deadpool traveling to the Marvel Cinematic Universe for relevance and trying to join the Avengers because Vanessa told him that he's selfish and now he's trying to find purpose in his life. Since when does Vanessa feel that way about Wade at all? Through the first two movies, which I actually did rewatch this week, Vanessa was always understanding, forgiving, and like accommodating to Deadpool. And in no way, shape, or form did I believe Vanessa would ever say, hey, I want to break up with you, Wade, because I feel like you're selfish. Since when? He saved your life on multiple occasions, did put your life in danger on one occasion, or two, or three, or four. But at the same time, I never would have thought that Vanessa would call him, of all people, selfish. And I also didn't like that a lot of the cast that we grew to love in Blind Owl and Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warrior, who I guess is Negasonic Adult Warrior now, and Yukio, like, those were the core characters that we really grew to love and who made Deadpool more of a humanized character. We really got to understand what he was fighting for through those characters in the first two movies. And in this movie, stripping them essentially completely out of it. They showed up at the birthday party at the beginning and then they showed up at the end. I can't stand when movies take away the core of what makes the main character actually really interesting. The same thing that actually happened in Kung Fu Panda 4, where they got rid of the Furious Five and it was just Poe and this new character. It's like, no, you took away the heart of what this movie franchise actually is. Deadpool isn't as interesting without those other characters. Let me tell you what the dumbest thing in this movie is. The universal anchor idea is just awful. It's just another rule in the litany of rules for the multiverse that have been made up throughout this multiverse saga that just makes it even more confusing. Wait, so I now have to remember that there's a universal anchor. And then they present it as Wolverine dies, Logan dies from Logan, and he was a universal anchor. You don't even need to make that rule up in order for this story to be put in motion. It's another multiversal rule that we have to remember in order for this multiverse saga to work, whether it's Clea slashing through the multiverses to get to the incursions, Spider-Man disrupting a spell, it's America Chavez punching through the multiverse, to TVA jumping and dipping and diving through the multiverse, through the quantum realm, getting into multiverse shenanigans. It's so much stuff that there's not any concrete rules about how the multiverse works in this universe. It just doesn't, like, it's just leading to more confusion. It's like, wait, so now what is Loki holding on to if you can just kill one person and then that time slips? Your entire universe is going to be destroyed because that Logan died, but the main villain, Mr. Paradox, wants to fast forward the destruction of your universe because he doesn't feel like waiting 1,000 years for it to implode or whatever. And my question is, why? Because you're impatient? Because you just don't feel like waiting? What bearing does this have on Mr. Paradox at all? Like, it's just, like, dumb. It's a really dumb way to get Wade into the situation. And why in the hell would you invite him to the MCU? What special characteristics about Wade tells me that Mr. Paradox wants him in another universe? Like, why are you even offering that? None of that stuff was explained. I don't understand why that's important at all. And then the weird thing is when he asked him about, hey, are you guys here because I was time slipping and saved Vanessa's life? And they're like, no, we're not here for that. That's exactly why they should be there. Why would you throw away that reasoning? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So Mr. Paradox is just being evil for evil's sake because he's impatient? What are you talking about? The other part of this film that I thought wasn't good in terms of the writing was Cassandra Nova is in Wolverine's head. She got the hands, she got the fingers through his skull, and she's reading what's going on in his mind and claiming that he's the worst Wolverine, even though there is no way he's the worst Wolverine for not being home at one point because he just wanted to go out and everybody getting killed. I'm sure there are Wolverines out there in the multiverse who have done far worse than what he's talking about. But my real issue is they did a whole lot of telling and not a lot of showing. All I heard was, and this happened, and this happened. And I'm seeing Hugh Jackman's face. He's a great actor, but I would rather have spent that time seeing the thing that he feels like made him the worst, right? He's just telling us. But I do want to give credit. The reason why he wears the yellow suit being that, you know, he regretted not feeling like he was a part of the team. And every time Scott tried to get him to wear a suit, he was like, nah, I don't want to do that. Subtle shot at Bryan Singer, by the way. Him wearing it as some kind of form of repentance because of his past, I thought that that was actually really well done. I thought that that was well told, but not shown. And Cassandra Nova was another issue with this movie. She was portrayed incredibly well by the actress. However, the movie does the biggest mistake that it can make, which is make your villain out to be this great, awesome, all-powerful villain that no one can defeat. And they painted themselves into a corner by making her so ridiculously powerful that they had to sideline her for the rest of the movie. They really put her in a box, including in the final fight. The movie has told us from every character that's been on the screen, including Blade, Gambit, Elektra, X-23, that this woman was unstoppable, unbelievable. We saw her rip the skin off of Johnny Storm, which was hilarious, by the way. The way that Wade got Johnny Storm killed, and in the post-credit scene, we found out that he really did say all that crazy shit about Cassandra Nova. But we saw Cassandra Nova be built up that way, and they painted themselves into a corner. They couldn't use her anymore because she would clearly kill everyone there unless you nerfed your own villain that you just set up an hour and a half ago. It's terrible writing to do that. So I found that that was another failure of this movie. And I know that the MCU has never really had the greatest villains, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk about the fact that this one also adds to that list of not great villains. She had the look, she had the powers, she had everything that she needed to be a cool villain, but they made her so powerful that they couldn't even use her. So how do I feel about this movie after everything I just said? The positives of the movie, the very smart and intelligent things that they did with this film, and all the really dumb and ridiculous things they did with this film, I have to say that it's a good time at the movies. It's definitely not terrible. It's definitely not great, not nearly as great as the praise that it's receiving, in my opinion. But I think that, you know, it's just okay. So let me know in the comments what you thought about this film, and I'll talk to you guys next time.